Do some girls really live up to their claims? We're about to learn the answer in the story. Rebecca was the girl that everyone loved, admired, the person with the sunny grin, the gentle voice, the compassionate nature, and the ideal daughter of a pastor. When she was only 19, if she behaved as a church girl, should humble, obedient, and devoted to God. She conducted worship every Sunday with a voice that brought tears to people's eyes. She never skipped morning prayer. The regulations were challenged to the rest of the globe. Rebecca was flawless, but she felt stuck. Rules she hated made her weary, no longer wanted to be. The pastor's daughter had to live up to expectations. Expectations sick of acting like she. The planet was not as different as I had expected. Outside was more lively, liberated, and thrilling. The other girls whispered at school about the wealthy VIP club and weekend parties, men who showered them with presents. They wore makeup and dressed in high-end attire and not have to worry about anything. The verdict of the congregation: Rebecca sat, never participating, just listening silently. However, curiosity is a hazardous thing. And then there was Jessica. Everything Rebecca had been cautioned about with amazing ease and confidence. Glamorous, she had an expensive scent. Perfume strolled about as if she were in charge of everything, and invariably had a new phone and a new handbag, as well as fresh tales about affluent men who she loved her. Additionally, Rebecca was unable to see. Jessica didn't follow any rules while she was away. She was the sort of girl Rebecca had been cautioned against about: untamed, self-assured, and gorgeous one. She sat next to him in the seat in the afternoon. Rebecca in the cafeteria with her manicured, lazily mixing her juice with her fingers. "You're always so quiet, church girl," she pondered, a small, innocent smile on her face, a little courteous smile from Rebecca's lips. Smile and say, "I simply don't speak much." Jessica. After observing her for a while, he leaned in. "But you," she said, her tone softening a little. "Listen." After that, a pause with a smirk. "And me? I'm sure you're curious about Rebecca's life." Shoulders were tense. "What do you mean?" With shining eyes, Jessica cocked her head with amusement. "The fun, the life, the freedom, no restriction, no expectations, nobody waiting for you while keeping an eye on everything you do." Rebecca opened her mouth in order to be flawless. Jessica attempted to voice her opposition, but was speechless, laughed quietly. "Don't worry, I'm not here to transform you." She struck the straw against. "I simply believe that the cup would be risky. If you ever stopped feigning." Jessica gulped and had no idea how. She was correct. The initial deception was minor. Her father had instructed her to go directly, following choir rehearsal, at home rather. She just went over to Jessica's place for an hour. She told herself to simply observe Rebecca's rigorous approach to running. The house was completely different. House. The walls were not adorned with any Bible verses. Not at all. She could feel the curfew coming. No silent prayers. The evening air reverberated with the sound. Rather, music pulsed throughout the space, vibrating the walls. The scent of pricey perfume held on to the air. Velvet was where the ladies were lounging, their laughter blending with the couches. The ring lights cast a glow as they recorded tick. Jessica gave her address in a talk video. Short and constricting, unlike anything Rebecca had ever seen. She said, "Try it on," which was the first time anyone had ever worn it. "No one will know." Rebecca paused with her fingers. "The fabric is brushed." After that, she gradually put it on. A stranger in the mirror returned my gaze. Not the pastor's child, someone else. Not the peaceful, obedient lady, someone dangerous. And, for the first time ever, was Rebecca living in a reality? The wrong life the whole time. The first time it was too simple for her to sneak out them. Her parents were here for a church vigil. Jessica's younger siblings are soundly asleep. A screen displayed the text, "Are you prepared?" Rebecca switched into the dress she had been wearing previously. As she put on her cosmetic, her fingers were steady, replicating Jessica's actions. When she glanced at herself in the mirror, the girl was looking at her, but she didn't know who she was. Underneath her skin, there was a buzzing sense of excitement. With her heart pounding as she went outside, she entered the back seat of a waiting car. Taxi. The noise in the club was unbearable. The air was heavy with lights that were dazzling, perfume, sweat, and something else she couldn't name. Girls moved with careless grace. Men treated them like trophies. Jessica leaned in, hoping to be claimed, whispering, welcome to the real world, church girl. After that, Rebecca took a deep breath, advanced. She wasn't aware that she possessed it, simply entered the most hazardous area of her existence. She ought to have been terrified. After that, she ought to have returned home. The first night though, she didn't. Instead, she wanted more. The way people saw her, the thrill of breaking when wearing that attire. Jessica's laughter is governed by regulation, wild and reckless. That evening had opened up something inside of her that was something, wildly something that is dangerous. And it was just the start. The initial lie had been tiny. I'm sleeping soundly in the second easy place. In Grace's home for a Bible study, Pastor James was informed by Rebecca's father, glowed with pride. That's my daughter. For a day her sense of guilt increased for a split second. Just after that, she heard Jessica's car horn outside, beckoning her into the night, and the guilt vanished in an instant. It wasn't only a club night, it was the exclusive rooftop party. Additionally, this time around without hesitation, Rebecca acted. The roof sparkled like a fantasy, champagne glasses and velvet couches. The air was filled with laughter. Girls sipping while wearing designer dresses. Beverages worth more than Rebecca's monthly salary allowance, men in tailored suits, their watches glistening in the city lights. Here, Rebecca felt different. She experienced. Jessica gave her a strong push in the direction of a guy, David and Rebecca. Perhaps he was in his mid-30s. His eyes, his smile, and his attire were all flawless. Her yaw was scanned carefully and slowly. "New," he said softly, and Rebecca agreed. David laughed all of a sudden out of embarrassment. "Don't be scared, church girl, you're in." Her breath caught as she said, "Good hands." "How did him? Do you know?" asked Jessica, wrapping her arm around herself and giggling. She's wrapped around Rebecca's shoulders. David at his best. David smiled and said, "Be kind." Oh, Rebecca was unaware that I would be really polite. But later that evening, she struck a deal with the David in the Devil was not like the schoolboys. He was a human being. He mailed it to her. Designer shoes, perfume, and the newest gifts. The phone, he said that, "You deserve nice things." Here. And for the first time ever, Rebecca felt desired. However, always presents have a cost. David picked her up in his car one evening, a beautiful Mercedes that was black and smelled like, "You're beautiful," he said to the leather at risk, whispered, pushing a lock of hair out of the way. When Rebecca saw her face, her heart raced. After that, when she leaned in, she saw that this was the case. Cost, she gasped for air. She had liked the presence, the pay attention to the excitement, but she was this. David's fingers traced her jaw in anticipation, ready for this. For her response, Rebecca experienced that at that point, to make a choice. Was she still the pastor's? Was she now someone else's daughter? It was the incorrect choice I made. The following morning, Rebecca awoke with a feeling of not the same. There was something within her that as she peered in the mirror and noticed a change. Looking in the mirror for the church girl she had been previously. However, all she could see was a stranger wearing pricey perfume. Her eyes reflected her skin and secrets. The worst, she did not regret some aspects of it. That was the initial indication. The second caution, later in that week. She was seated in when her phone vibrated during class. A message, David, come outside right now." Ha! The heart was pounding. She exited the classroom quietly, and he discovered his car parked across the street. Road. She instantly made her way into the chair, and David's face told me that something was wrong. You was distinctively darker and less charming. He hasn't been answering my calls, he said Rebecca, her tone too composed. His mouth said, "I was busy," as he swallowed. "Don't play games with me," I said, my voice getting tighter. The air inside the automobile was becoming dense, twisted tummy. At this point, she understood. She was in over her head and she didn't know how to leave. The lies had Rebecca was doing more than just sneaking. Any longer, she was leading a double life. She was still Pastor James during the day. By his daughter, the ideal church girl, night, she was different from lies, cannot endure forever. And before long, somebody was going to learn what Rebecca's secret is becoming increasingly difficult to conceal, someone close to. She starts to get a sense of the reality. The nightlife scene and the church community start to clash. Additionally, a single error will cause a catastrophe. She didn't anticipate it at all. The arrival of Sunday morning caught Rebecca off guard, desired. She slept hardly at all the night before David was becoming overly possessive. He dialed her 10 times and he sent a message after she didn't respond. Terrifying words. You assume you can't disregard I am the one who shaped you into who you are today. You owe me. Rebecca had been staring at the message for a while. A bizarre dread that had been building up in her for a long time span, but she was required to be at today's event. Once again, the pastor's daughter. She rubbed the little scar on her cupboard. With concealer, David had held her wrist too tightly. As she attempted to exit the establishment, it's okay, nobody will see it. At least, that's what she thought. Concept. Because she was sitting up front, bending her head in prayer in the row at church. She had the impression that someone was watching her with keen eyes. Her mother and her mother saw it. Everything Rebecca made an effort to provide aftercare. To hurry by her parents and flee to her room, but also her mother. Mrs. Evelyn Adam altered her with a single glance. The abdomen of Rebecca, crooked Mrs. Adams. Her mother did indeed study her. Closely she said you've been aloof, and that she made a kind gesture by touching the Rebecca's mark was masked by concealer. Wrist. What occurred in Rebecca's case? Taken aback. Nothing, I burnt, Mom. I was ironing my dress by myself. Her mother. I frowned, trying to recall when you used the. Recently, Rebecca's hands began to iron. I was sweating, and I stayed at Grace's place. Mrs. Adams' eyes became darker as she was in her home. There was something about her gaze that caused Rebecca's flip the stomach. She was aware of, perhaps not enough of everything else. Her mother let out a sigh. Please help me in the kitchen, Rebecca. The mom I have now hesitates. Rebecca. There was no room for discussion. The kitchen fried and smelled of fresh spices. Plantains Rebecca was chopping alongside her mother. Tell me said the onions as they attempted to behave normally. The truth, Rebecca, her mother said out of nowhere. Rebecca's knife came to a halt, middle cut. Her chest constricted and she wondered, what do you mean? Her mother's tone was mild yet. I can feel you're lying to me, the company said. Mom, Rebecca said, forcing a smile. Overthinking, Mrs. Adams said as she wiped her hands on her apron and I turned to face her. Rebecca also used to be young. Challenging when a girl is in love. She has a certain radiance, loves her, her mother went on. However, additionally, there is a sense of gloom when Rebecca sensed that the young woman was in danger. I'm not sure what you're doing up close to your throat. Recreating Rebecca. However, exercise caution around her mother. Whispered gifts are always given by the devil. Grab something with one hand larger than the other. The words struck. More difficult than Rebecca had anticipated. She considered about David, the nights out, and the gifts, the daily approaching peril. Was she, now dropping more than she made her, the hand of her mother was touched lightly. You may let me know whatever my kid, Rebecca wanted. In order to, she nearly lost it there. She shared everything with her, except for her. The phone in her pocket vibrated. I noticed David, get out here. Rebecca's stomach turned over now. She drew her hand away from her mother's. I have to go learn, and I gave a forced smile. Before Mom ran out of the kitchen, she didn't realize that her mother might be able to stop her. Her anxious tears were beginning to well up. Rebecca escaped from her mother's gaze, house and discovered David parked close to its corner. She realized it the instant she entered. David wasn't smiling. Something was amiss. His grip was firm and his jaw was clenched. The steering wheel which reads, "You're avoiding me." Rebecca shook her head at his frigid words. No, I was just immediately busy. David let out a big sigh then, seized her chin out of nowhere, compelling her to look at him and say, "Don't lie to me, Rebecca." She felt fear shoot through her. He stated, "I've never seen him this way before." David was no longer the alluring and capable man he had been. This David was a threat, Rebecca realized. David's hold tightened, making it difficult for me, and he said, "Good girl." Then he stretched out his hand. He put it in his pocket and gave her something. Little her gold wristband. Rebecca, who was gorgeous and expensive, paused. David stated, "It's a present," and then he forced a smile. "To let you know who owned you." The thought gave Rebecca the creeps. Belong. However, she put it on after nodding, and at that point, Rebecca understood that she was no longer free. I tried to behave normally at school, but she was being watched by someone. Her closest friend, Grace, gave her a tug one afternoon. "We need to talk, Rebecca, apart from Rebecca." Forced a smile. What about crossing Grace? You're behaving differently and she's in your arms. You made Rebecca's pulse raise. You misrepresent your whereabouts. And Grace's tone changed too. You smell like occasionally. Rebecca's stomach gets alcohol. What? Grace's voice was distorted and gentler. Rebecca, are you in trouble? Chortled, convinced. You know I adore you, right? Rebecca nodded fast, according to Grace. Of course. Tell me the truth, Rebecca. Waited. She then gave a nod. Grace let out a sigh, saying there was nothing to say. Eyes downcast. It's okay if you won't tell me. I'll find out. Myself. What? Rebecca said, as her heart stopped. Grace appeared to say, Do you mean? As she murmured. I followed you last, she said, looking her straight in the eye. Good evening, Rebecca. Rebecca's dual existence begins to fall apart. David's real character becomes apparent, and even one error will put Rebecca in the most risky situation. At that time, Rebecca's heart was, I followed you last night until I stopped. The phrases of Rebecca Grace remained in the air. Rebecca's physique was cold, heavy, and sharp. What did she say? Grace's eyes were blazing with the moment I saw you. I was disappointed, Rebecca, dressed like Grace at the club. Shaking her head, he paused. It wasn't. I didn't grow up with that girl. Rebecca took a deep breath. Her hands were shaking. This could not be occurring. In case Grace knew who else was responsible for Rebecca's ouster, stated, forcing a smile. It's not what you're saying. Grace probably crossed her arms, then described how Rebecca opened her mouth. No, the truth was too much, so words came out. Ugly as well. Rebecca's eyes were calmed by the menacing Grace. Talk to me. Are you being coerced? That guy Rebecca's throat closed up. David. She pondered his grip on her. In the manner in which he glared at him with his cold gaze, kept an eye on her every action. However, Grace was unable to tell David if he discovered. Rebecca let out another laugh that was forced. I'm okay, Grace. The truth is that all I required was money. Grace's expression broke. You're at that point. You don't need money that much, Rebecca. Don't turn away. Grace understood that. She had grabbed her hand. Then create me. We know Rebecca pulled away, no longer speaking. She turned around and walked away, but her heart raced with each stride. More challenging, she had lost her closest companion. Furthermore, she was completely clueless about how much worse things could get. We were about to learn Rebecca's tale. Over. The decision she made, the agony she put up with, the treachery that they have truly suffered. Are they actually backing her? Or is it only the right moment in the past life as a way of knowing when to strike again, restoring the things we attempt to? Will we be prepared for when it happens though? Ask yourself if Rebecca will be prepared. Have you ever completely left your history behind? Or does it, if there is pain, it will always find its way back? Forgotten, or does it teach us anything? In case you were in Rebecca's place in the future, stay tuned for what you would do with your shoes. For part 2, because the storm is distant from above, and not everyone when it comes to it will escape unscathed.